Good morning, everybody, and welcome to OLC4O, Term 1B. I'm your instructor, Mike Laverty, and today is January 20th, 2023. We're broadcasting today on a Friday because we missed Tuesday's class as I was unable to come into the studio that day, but I'm back now and we're on to class 32. So this is a 36 class course, so we're getting really close to wrapping things up, and that's why today's class will cover Unit 4, Lesson 20, the Literacy Portfolio. And I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about Assignment 43. So we'll do that, but mostly we're going to focus on that literacy portfolio and what that entails. So we are in week 8 of classes in Term 1B. We will spend well, I guess at this point we'll spend at least a week preparing for the final exam / culminating activity. So I think at this point it's safe to say we'll spend 1 week next week delving into that final exam culminating activity. So I won't of course show you the final exam or the culminating activity, but I will do the best thing the next best thing possible, and we'll pull up some sample exams that are available online for free. Previous exams from the literacy test. There's an online there's a website I'll show you, and that's for people who are preparing to write the Ontario literacy test. And of course, this literacy course is an equivalent to writing that test. So there's lots of material that you can do to prepare yourself for the final exam or the culminating activity. So as I've mentioned before, the number one option is that you write this final exam. And that requires that you go somewhere, most likely your learning center, and then your DEC or somebody else has to be in the room with you while you write it, which is called proctoring or invigilating an exam. And then if that can't happen, if we can't arrange for someone to sit down in a room with you, then option number 2 is you complete a culminating activity. So the final exam is written in a couple hours, whereas the culminating activity, you got a few days to complete it. And the last day of class is January 26th. That's next week's class. That's going to be our last broadcast. So we've wrapped up units 1, 2, 3, and today we'll finish off unit 4. And then, of course, week number 9, as I just mentioned, will be devoted to final exam, culminating activity. So we'll look at some examples. Also going to review some key concepts from the course. Talk about our key reading concepts and our key writing concepts, because this is a literacy course, and literacy is more than just reading and writing. There's all kinds of literacy, but for the purposes of our course, we really focus on reading and writing. So look at those key concepts and skills that, if you've come this far in the course, that you've definitely picked up. So we discussed this yesterday, that at this point in the course, you're kind of like looking back and taking stock of what you've done, and hopefully, taking some pride and being proud of what you've done, and look at your accomplishments for coming this far, and recognizing what you've done to become a better reader, a better writer, a better editor, all these really critical skills, and then how those skills are going to help you, right? So, I think back to when I was a little boy and I was attending elementary school, and, even in high school, I would always ask my teachers, like, why am I learning this? What's the point of this? And then you always hear students say, I'm never going to use this. Why would I have to learn this? So I'm hoping that you can look back on what you've done and see like these are really important skills, and they definitely have a use in your life. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just take the time to pause the screen and take in that information. That's the ways that you can participate with the chorus live when we broadcast. Today's a little different. We're broadcasting 11 to 11:55, but normally we're on the air from 10 a.m. to 10:55 a.m. Central Standard Time. And of course, check us out on YouTube. You want to search for Laverty Wassa, and you can just click on the home button, or you can watch the videos, the playlists. Every unit is divided into a playlist, and the whole chorus. You'll see an OLC4O. You'll see a Term 1B playlist. You'll see a Unit 1, 2, 3, and 4 playlist. And then starting next week, you'll see a Final Exam playlist. So I've organized the content to make it easier for you to find what you need. Again, you can pause the screen if you're watching on YouTube, and just be aware that there is a certain protocol you have to take when you submit your work to your DEC or sending it to Wassa. And then you can also just contact your instructor directly. So if you want to contact me, then my email address is on the screen, my Facebook Messenger. If you just go on Facebook and search Laverty Wassa, you will find me. Feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook, and then we can also communicate through Messenger. Yeah, you don't have to add me as a friend on Facebook. That's, of course, a decision that you can make. But I think the reason you would add my, and that is my professional Facebook account. It's only used for school-related purposes. So if you add me as a friend on there, then I can add. I just post things on there, and you might see it in your feed. It might give you a reminder. Also want to remind you that Wassa has released an updated Facebook page. So we had a Facebook page, but we started a new one. So I've shared that on my Facebook. I'll do it again. So like that page, get lots of good reminders. And of course, you can phone us. The first number is if you're in the Sulakot area. The second number is a free number because you won't incur long distance charges if you're phoning from outside the Sulakot, that 807 area code. And the best time to contact me is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when I'm going to be the most active on Facebook Messenger, through email, and through phone. That's when you're going to have the best chance of getting through to me. So here's your suggested progress. So again, I use the word suggested because there are no requirements if you're doing this course as an independent learner, aside from the fact that you have to have your assignments completed and handed in by our deadline in June. But I've mentioned this before that you should you should strive to complete the course in like a 9 or 10 week span, I think. And then everybody's different. We all have different learning styles. But my recommendation to you would, like if you want to be an independent learner, it might be best just to focus on one course at a time and not focus on multiple ones, especially if you're working full time, if you have kids, that kind of thing. If you got a lot going on in your life, it might make more sense to just buckle down and just focus on one course and complete it on that 8 or 9 week schedule that the regular terms are set up as. So this suggested progress is when you're 8 weeks in, 8 weeks in, almost 9 weeks in, you should have read all the pages of units 1 through 4, or at least scanned and skimmed Unit 4, so at least had like a first look into Unit 4. complete assignments 1 through 41, and make a plan for completing assignments 42 and 43. And then after you got that taken care of, then you'll work on your literacy portfolio. But that's what we're doing today. So here's today's lesson in a nutshell. We're going to look at our images and words of the day. We're going to look at today's headline. And we're going to delve into Unit 4, Lesson 20, Literacy Portfolio. And then also, just very briefly, just have a quick look at assignment 43. And I just want to expand upon a couple of things that I mentioned in yesterday's broadcast. So our learning goals for today are to review the writing process to create an outline for your longest writing assignment of this course, assignment 43. So I want to go back to assignment 43 and just touch upon writing that outline. So it's difficult for me to guide your writing process because I don't know where you're going to take it. I think the best use of my time and the best use of your time is for me to show you how to outline it and how to really work on that planning phase to get yourself off on the right foot. So we'll expand upon the planning that I did yesterday and create like a little more solid outline. And I want you to reflect upon your progress in OLC4O and review the list of assignments that comprise the literacy portfolio. So we'll look at the whole list of the literacy portfolio, kind of jog your memory, and just show you what that assignment is really all about. And you'll be successful if you can create an outline for assignment 43 and work towards producing a rough draft. If you can begin the process of gathering up your assignments to create your literacy portfolio. So that's you just taking the initial steps and just, looking at the checklist, making yourself familiar with the assignments, and then hopefully in, the coming days and weeks, gathering up that material to produce your literacy portfolio. So just, first step one, just, what is being asked of me? Do I have these resources? And if I don't have them, how can I get in touch? How can I find them? And, that kind of thing. So here's our images of the day. So if we're reflecting back on the concept of literacy and communication, I've just got a couple of political cartoons / one-panel cartoons that I love to talk about. So the first one, we've got a dad, and it looks like a mom beside him watching television. And he says, "Shouldn't you be reading a book?" And I shared this with my 12-year-old son the other day because I think this is what a lot of parents do. A lot of parents give their kids criticism for not reading, not being more literate, not engaging their mind. Get off your phone, get off your device. But then, of course, the parents are hooked to them too, right? So, and the panel on the right is the evolution of communication. This is a really popular format for memes and things like that. It's like the evolution from the caveman who is etching the first written word onto a stone tablet to, looks like we've got Gutenberg, the movable type. We've got the mass publication of the book to email, and then we're back to a caveman with Twitter. So this is a common thread that you see in a lot of books and a lot of memes. The fact that technology is, in a sense, maybe making us dumber, maybe slowing down our abilities to think. And there's a lot of debate on this. So, we're talking about opinion. I've actually been reading lots of stuff in the news about like artificial intelligence and doing a lot of the writing for us. So as an English teacher, I think that people need to think for themselves. We need to write. We need to communicate. And, I think technology is, and a lot of people say that it's a tool and it's how you use it. So, yeah, I think you can do both. I love reading. I love books, but I also love TV shows. I love movies. I love watching hockey. I love playing hockey. So I love technology, but I love reading. So it goes both ways. But I think that if you overly rely upon technology, I certainly think there's a danger there in losing a bit of your humanity. And there's a real benefit to to creating your own ideas and not just always consuming other people's ideas. So I think it's really important to generate your own ideas and to do your own thinking and not let other ideas just flood into your mind without thinking about them. Because I think you lose a bit of yourself. You'll lose a bit of who you are if you spend too much time in that world. All right, it's up on the board. We've got an Anishinaabe-Moan word, Gaki na Gigo, which is a noun, which is everything, all of them, a set of things. It's a different word. It's not really related to that word, but it's reflection. That's a noun. The act of reflecting, as in casting back a light or heat, mirroring or giving back or showing an image. So we're talking about reflection. And I've talked about this in this course too. We have the literal definition, which is like the denotation. That's what reflection literally means. Reflection literally means, like the sun shining down on a surface and then that light reflecting back. And then a denotation or a related meaning or a secondary meaning is a fixing of the thoughts on something, careful consideration. So that's when instead of the sun casting light and having the light bounce back, that's you casting your thoughts onto something and then those thoughts bouncing back to you. So it's sort of like a metaphor for how your thoughts can look back and cast upon what's already been done and then, doing some careful consideration. Got some related words. We've got akina, which is all or everything. Gigu, which is something. Right? So if we go back, we can see it's a compound word. Gaki na gigu, which is everything, all of them, a set of everything. Gabe gijig, all day. Gabe bibun, which is all winter. And gawen gigu, which is nothing, right? Because that word gawen, which translates to no, or it's like a negative. It's sort of like the equivalent of non or un, those prefixes you find in English, right? So it sort of like cancels whatever you have. So if gigu means something, then gawen gigu, which means nothing or no thing. Some English words I want you to think about. Literacy is a noun, the quality or state of being literate, especially the ability to read and write. A person's knowledge of a particular subject or field. So literacy, we still primarily think of literacy as reading and writing. So if you're a literate person, you can read and you can write. But we also talk about there's different kinds of literacy. There's digital literacy. Your ability to navigate and use technology. There could be art literacy, all different forms of literacy, financial literacy, your ability to understand money and accounting and saving and revenues, expenditures, that kind of thing. So there's different forms of literacy, and it's just your ability. And then they all really come down to communications, right? So it's just learning how to communicate with others, to understand other people's financials, understand yours. Composition. The act of combining parts or elements to form a whole. A short essay written as a school exercise. So in America, they typically refer to the field of writing as composition, and it's nice because it's similar to the word combine and compose, right? So, and that's what a writer does, right? Is you combine parts to create a whole, right? And then we discussed this week the concepts of selecting and choosing and gathering, right? So you go out in the field and you select these little words that you want, and sort of like a metaphor for like going out in the bush or the land or whatever the case may be, and just going out and picking things and selecting things and being careful, and that using that careful consideration and gathering up the pieces and then bringing them back home and then putting them all together in a recipe or some other mixture to create something. But that's where you, the author, the writer, come in, right? So here's our article of the day. Is DNA testing your pets worth the splurge? Published yesterday in the Globe and Mail by Olivia Stren, January 19th, 2023. The photo credit is herself because that's a picture she took of her cat Bambi. So there we go. So that's the article. Let's break down that. So is a verb, right? So is it is a form of the word to be. So is, was, are, those are all variations on that theme. So is a verb. Is DNA testing. So DNA is a thing, but in this case it functions as that adjective noun combo. So they're not just talking about testing, they're talking about DNA testing. Your is a pronoun. Remember, pronouns stand in place for a noun. And this is standing in place for the audience, right? Or the reader, right? So the reader or the audience of the article. So usually a pronoun, the way a pronoun works is the person's full name is referenced. Like Mike Laverty is a teacher at WASA. He teaches OLC4O. In that case, the pronoun is he, and it replaces my name because it gets awkward just using someone's name over and over again. That's how we have pronouns. But in this case, the pronoun is like assumed that it's the reader. So instead of saying, is DNA testing, the pets that belong to the people reading this article, right, or something like that, it would just be too awkward. So you just say your, and it's an assumed audience or reader. Pets, worth the splurge. Remember, articles, there's only 3 in the English language. It's a, an, and the. Just really quickly, wanted to just identify a couple of things that she's doing in this article. Now, when you reference, like, see how she says about 6 months later. This is about the midway point of the article. So, about 6 months later, comma. So that's what we call an introductory phrase. They're always marked off with commas. After much campaigning from my then 6-year-old son, Leo. And I see how they've put a comma. So anytime you introduce a person, like my wife, comma, Natalie, that's what I'd use in my case. So you separate the person, you separate it with, you put a comma before the person's name and a comma that comes after. We adopted a new kitten. Leo called her Bambi, which seemed fitting. And we see that dash, which is after the dash. We put in new information. Yeah, I think that's about all there. Oh, see, we've got a quote from someone in the article, introduced by our friend the colon, and separated by, or sort of like encased in quotation marks, with the punctuation mark going on the inside. So I ordered an at-home DNA test for cats from Base Paws, a California-based company founded by CEO and feline genetics pioneer Anna Skaya, who appeared on Shark Tank and is currently building the world's biggest feline genomic database. Right? So we've talked about this, where you introduce a concept like Base Paws, then you put a comma in. So the pattern goes is you bring up a noun or a thing, right, or an idea. Then you put a comma, and then you give the reader additional info about that thing, idea, right, or noun, right? All right, so we've got this. The kid arrived, and my husband and I administered the test, a mouse swab, Something we read takes 3 traumatic seconds, right? So she's using a bit of humor. So sometimes you can use brackets to bracket off a description. So that's kind of funny, right? It also takes 2 human adults. Bambi swung her ears back in extreme irritation, then headed off to convalesce from the seconds-long upset with a 6-hour nap. So we talked about the reading strategy of just guessing a word's meaning. So if you don't know a word like convalesce, just if you read the sentence, what happened? They gave the cat the test. The cat didn't like it. Then it headed off for a 6-hour nap. So to convalesce, it literally means to rest and recover after a sickness or an illness. But that's what that word means. So it took the cat 6 hours to recover, right? So, and then one last example, we've got what's in the package? Quotation mark, quotation mark. The man at the Canada Post asked, right? So we often have the quotation mark, and then after the quotation, or sometimes before or after, we have the slug, or we call it the speaker tag. And the speaker tag tells us who said it, when they said it, how they said it. It tells us, where does that quote come from? Because you can't just simply put quotation marks and then put words in the middle and just leave it as that. You have to tell the reader, okay, because the quotation marks are telling me somebody else is speaking. This is somebody else's word. So the reader needs to know who's speaking. They need to know why they're speaking. They need context, right? They need information that tells them, okay, I'm getting words from somebody else, but why am I getting words from somebody else? All right, so let's go back to assignment 43. So what you're doing in assignment 43 is expressing an opinion. And your opinion is you are choosing the most memorable and meaningful parts of your learning process. So more specifically, that's your favorite or most meaningful reading experience in this course and your most favorable writing experience in this course. And then writing a series of paragraphs that talks about that. So you need to write an outline to help you get started. I recommend writing an outline for pretty much every writing assignment you do in this course or any writing you do in general, right? If you're writing in a diary and all you want to do is just get your thoughts on the page and just think about your life or just reflect upon things, then that's totally fine. You don't need to really write an outline. You can just go. Just put your pen on the paper, start typing with your keyboard. But if you're writing something that's specific and it's for a specific audience, then you need an outline. So with this assignment, you've got 3 paragraphs. You've got a paragraph 1, introduction, paragraph 2, best reading experience, paragraph 3, best writing experience, and paragraph 4, a conclusion, or a concluding paragraph. You will submit your series of paragraphs expressing an opinion to your teacher. After it has been marked, you will make any needed revisions and include it as the introduction to your literacy portfolio, regardless of how you choose to present it, right? So I mentioned this yesterday, so it definitely deserves being talked about. So step 1, you hand in rough and final copy, right? So you need to do a rough copy and then make edits, do some revision. Remember, edits are the small level changes like the microscopic level, word choice, punctuation, spelling. When we edit our work, we're looking at word level and sentence level. When we're revising our work, we're looking at paragraph level and the whole thing, the title, how the whole thing is organized, right? So if you want, if you've ever worked in construction, revision would be like the blueprint and like how the rooms fit into each other, and the overall design of a house, and the big picture stuff. And then editing would be like the trim around a doorway, and like the wiring, and like putting in a window in one specific spot, or putting in the kitchen cabinet, right? So it's the smaller components. So editing is to do with the smaller pieces, and revision is to do with the bigger pieces. So step one, you hand in your rough and your final copy. Step two, after it's graded, right? Then you're going to revise and edit. And then hopefully you can read that. And then step three, you will include in your portfolio. And I'm really hoping that this teaches you a valuable lesson, in that, it'd be nice if you could just write something once and it would come out perfect. But as I've been saying this whole chorus, that's not how things work as a writer for probably 99% of us. Is you have to do multiple drafts. You have to make things better over time. And that's something that is relevant to a lot of different fields in life, like music and art. And if you work with technology, if you create systems, if you as humans, we're always building stuff and designing stuff, and then they have to go through multiple versions. And then we tweak things, and we change them, and we keep some things, and we get rid of the other stuff. And that's really how it's done, right? You don't just create something perfect and that's it. It's just magical. It's just done. It's really a process of just it changes over time, right? And then little pieces change and they go. But so you need to edit this thing twice. So you hand in assignment 43, right? So we hand in assignment 43. I look at it, I grade it, send it back to you with some feedback, with some comments, and then you change it and edit it a second time, and then you include that in your portfolio. So I'm hoping that's clear to everybody. You don't just include it in your portfolio. You need to edit it and make it stronger. All right, so I'd like to talk about the outline process. So I'm going to drop my outline box like I did yesterday. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to visualize my outline. This works for me really well. It might not work for you. You might want to change this or edit this or revise this for your purposes, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4. So yesterday, I was trying to put myself in the shoes of a student who was enrolled in OLC4O, and because even though I'm not a student in this course, I'm quite familiar with the assignments, so it's easy for me to do this. So I look back and I reflected upon my experience in this course. And I did all the reading, but I didn't do all of the writing. I have completed some of the assignments myself just to understand how they work. But paragraph 2 was my best reading experience. And what I did yesterday, so if you go back and you review the last 10 minutes of yesterday's class, you'll see that I suggested that you get really specific and write about something really specific. So it's easier to write about things that are specific than to talk about things that are general, right? So I love hockey a lot, right? But writing a paragraph or writing an essay about hockey is just like there's just too much to talk about. So you have to kind of drill down and get like a specific aspect of the game of hockey, right? So either goaltending, and then even that's really more like a general topic, and then playing as a goalie, how to teach people how to be a goalie, the history of goaltending, NHL goaltending. There's just so many ways you could talk about something, but the more specific you can get, there's two really big benefits, right? Specific writing is interesting, right? The more specific you get, the more interesting usually it gets, and the easier it gets for you to write about, right? Because you're not struggling for what to write about. You've already figured out what has to be done, and that's what we're trying to figure out here with this outline. We're trying to do what I'm going to do. I call this sentence blocking or sentence planning. So like sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, and what I'm doing here is I'm giving myself notes, and then I'm sort of giving myself a homework assignment. So I want myself to write a sentence about this, write a sentence about that, then write a sentence about this. So I'm going to write a sentence about my favorite scene, or even I recommend you write about your favorite scene or your favorite character from the novel Jimmy Comes Home, or just write about something specific, right? So if you're going to talk about your favorite reading experience in this course, pick it, and then pick your favorite sentence, pick your favorite quote, whatever the case may be. So, write about, a sentence about why I enjoyed the chapter where Gary goes through the ice, right? So, yeah, let's see if I can. Let's try that. I think there we go. That's much better. Should have done that a long time ago. Okay. So why I enjoyed. Let's just. My pen is too thick. Let's change that. So why I enjoyed chapter when Gary went through ice. So I'm not writing in complete sentences. I'm just writing in point form. So I'm going to write a sentence about why I enjoyed chapter when Gary went through the ice. So I need to develop this idea. So my best reading experience. And then I'm going to write about a specific line or passage. So I introduced the idea about, so I really enjoyed the chapter where Gary fell through the ice and they had to rescue him. And then I'm going to identify a specific line or passage that I can describe and just point to a specific line or a paragraph and then quote it and say, like, I enjoyed this example from that. So I'm going to leave that there, and then I'm going to go on to here. So this, the best writing. And I mentioned this yesterday. If you can draw a connection between these two, that'd be great. So sentence 1 will be about following a similar pattern here. This is going to be, why I enjoyed writing a news report. And then again, I'm going to get specific. So here's I'm going to talk about the additional details I added. because if you think back to that news report article, you had to read a chapter, you had to read a specific chapter of Jimmy Comes Home, and then you wrote a news report. And if you wanted, you could add additional details. So which is what I did, right? So I enjoyed reading a news report, writing a news report, and I'm gonna put a note here to myself. I'm talking with the Jimmy Comes Home one. And I enjoyed writing additional details that I added. Okay. So, and then paragraph 1 is my intro, and paragraph 4 is my conclusion. So sentence 1, sentence 2. And then sentence 1, you might want to say something like, I'm using the word enjoy here. I might change that later, but enjoyed OLC4O. You could even do a comparison and contrast, like some things. You could mention some things you didn't like, but did like some things. And so when you do this kind of sentence planning and sentence outlining, you're writing in point form, and it's just really basic, and and you might sound like a caveman or something, but some things some things didn't like, but that's generally what I want to talk about. I want to introduce that, by taking this course, I liked it. There were many assignments I didn't like, such as, but I really liked reading the novel Jimmy Comes Home. And then, so after you've introduced that idea, a logical starting point would be a sentence about Jimmy Comes Home and why I liked it. And then a sentence about reading and writing in general. And then my conclusion will be to maybe I may want to connect paragraphs 2 and 3. I'm going to connect my reading and writing. And then maybe a sentence about how I improved skills. And then, sometimes you might have some question marks, okay? Like sometimes and that's okay. So I don't have enough time today to go through this with you, but it's a good example of how sometimes you just need to block things out and you don't have all the answers, but it helps to just put a little bit of pieces in place. And then go ahead, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've given myself 9 sentence prompts. And then now I can go do that, and I can just try to write those 9 sentences. And then I can put them together. And then by doing that, I'm going to generate more ideas and then come back, and then I should know where to finish it off, right? So so that it's fine to have that. It's fine to have some question marks, right? So so step 1, you create what I call sentence prompts. And what these are ideas for sentences. So right? You're giving yourself homework. Step 2 is you write those sentences, right? So it's pretty simple. Give yourself a sentence to write. Write those sentences, and then step 3 will be to edit the sentences. Edit the sentences, and then step 4 would be to, write out more sentences. And then step 5 would be to revise and then edit your work. So step number 1, create the sentence prompts, ideas for sentences. Go ahead and write those sentences. Step 3, edit the sentences. I would say edit and also review them. So go back and reflect upon what you did. Step 4, write some more sentences. So once you've got some ideas on the page, it's easier to generate ideas. And then you can revise and edit your work from there, right? So yesterday's class, I mentioned that a lot of musicians will create demos and just sort of jam and riff and just make stuff up. Then they go back and they listen to that, and then they get ideas, right? So that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're just putting down rough ideas and then letting those rough ideas inspire even better ones. So the literacy portfolio, it's worth 30 marks of your final grade. So this is from the material, so this is what you'll read to yourself. So you've done it. Congratulations. This is the final assignment of the Ontario Literacy course, and the great news is you've already done most of the work for this assignment already, which is true. You've done the work. You just simply have to put it all together. Throughout this course, you've done a lot of reading and writing, which has helped to improve your literacy skills. All of the activities you have completed relate directly to what students find on the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, right? So when you graduate high school, when you get your OSSD, your Ontario Secondary School Diploma, you have two options. You can write the literacy test, or you can complete the literacy course. And they both cover the same skills, and they test you on the same skills. So with this lesson, lesson 20, you're going to submit your literacy portfolio in order to demonstrate that you have not only learned about the various forms of reading and writing, but also that you have learned about the importance of revising and editing your work. So throughout this course, you have been tracking your reading and writing and putting key pieces like filled-in reading logs into your portfolio. You will now be handing in your literacy portfolio. So you can put it in a duotang folder, most common, or a binder. It is your choice. So I should also mention that I would accept a digital portfolio. So if you could put this thing together in like one big Word document or one big PDF with a cover page and a checklist that includes all the material, that'd be great too. So you can send in or mail in, like a folder or a binder, and your DC can mail that thing to me and I can mail it back. That's fine too. So a physical one is fine, and a digital one is also fine. If you have any questions about that, let me know. So we'll run through the last 5 minutes here. We'll run through the checklist. So the first thing in the portfolio is the lesson we just looked at, assignment anthology of best work. That is assignment number 23, okay? Sorry, 43. So that's assignment 43. An edited version. That's what we're talking about there. That's the first thing, right? And we do that because that document serves as the introduction for your portfolio. It makes context for the portfolio. It tells the reader why you're doing it, and it's a nice introduction. So the second one is lesson 1, a journal entry. That's the 7 grandfather teachings. Number 2 is the journal entry that asks you to write about growing up in your community. Then you include your news report. So your literacy portfolio will show a rough draft version and a final draft version. So it shows your progress, and it demonstrates that you understand the writing process, that the writing and process entails producing rough work and then making it better with stronger work. You were asked to do a journal entry on the writing process where you are reflecting. You're reflecting upon the writing process. Then you did a journal entry on your progress so far. So looking back on lessons 1 through 5. Lesson 6, your brochure, and lesson 7 is an information paragraph. That's when you wrote a how-to paragraph, how to do something. Then you include your series of paragraphs expressing an opinion. That's whether you disagree or agree. There was 2 statements. There was should men be forced to financially support children they're not raising or looking after? And should juvenile offenders be forced to write letters to their victims, or should juvenile offenders be forced to do certain things to sort of like make amends with the people they wronged? That's what that paragraph's all about. Lesson 10 was your paragraph where you looked at the Got Milk ad campaign and discussed it. Lesson 11 was a journal entry where you spoke about visuals in general. Lesson 12 was a reflection piece. And this was your reflection on literacy skills. And just it was also about reflecting itself. So reflecting about reflecting. Like, do you think it's useful? Why or why not? Your opinion piece was there was an article in Wawate, and then you had to say, like, do you agree with what they're talking about or not? And the article had to do with the introduction of HSD. The introduction of HSD in Ontario in 2011. Lesson 13 was your news report. This is about when Gary falls through the ice. We had talked about that today. Lesson 14 is your cover letter. Lesson 15 is your resume. Lesson 15 is a journal entry, and we're talking about success in the workplace. So, we were talking about communication skills and how you could use them in various workplaces and why they're important to have. Lesson 16 was Jimmy Comes Home. So this was, you're talking about the characters, what you know about them. You were making predictions about the characters and what will happen in the final chapters. Lesson 17 is a summary. You read a biography about Robert Checkwich, the author of Jimmy Comes Home, and you summarized it. And lesson 18 was your information paragraph, and that was your career scholarships. That was sort of like your reflection on your selected career and what you learned about pursuing a particular career and what kind of scholarships and bursaries and basically how you could get a whole bunch of money that's going to help you to pay off your tuition and things like that. So that is all of the components of the literacy portfolio and all the things you have to include to make that happen. So thanks for tuning in, and next week we will jump in with some final exam, culminating activity preparation, and we'll take a look back on the whole course and review some fundamental ideas. So I look forward to doing that. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.